Thank you so much for having me here today. This topic that I get to talk about today, I think, is one of the most profoundly important topics in government today. And I'm thrilled to see the broader community in government starting to really understand that we've passed the tipping point in thinking about what our workforce needs to be in the 21st century, how it needs to be positioned. And we started a journey, for me it started kind of a couple years ago, thinking about how do we meet the needs of mission, service, and stewardship in the 21st century. And people was clearly part of that question. Now, I had started thinking that the people question was really an enabling element around the broader IT modernization journey. But what I've learned since being in government is the people mission and the human capital mission is bigger than that. And I've been reading a book lately, the Agility Shift book. Has anyone read this book? It is absolutely clear to me, after many of the things I've seen in just 2 years of trying to support the government community as it is trying to get the right people in the right jobs with the right skills at the right time in a way that's fair and merit-based, how hard that is in a system that was designed for a much more predictable, stable world. Who's heard of the concept of VUCA? Anybody? Okay, so there's this notion, and I believe it rings really true for me. A VUCA world is volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. That isn't a moment in time issue. That is everything we deal with today, whether it's technology change driving it, human migration driving it, climate factors driving it, the complexity that comes from our everyday lives. Demographic shifts are driving many of the changes here. But the very simple fact that the technology device sitting in your bag or in your pocket or in your hand is different than the one you had 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, and what it can do for you is just an emblem of how fast the world is changing. There's an app for that. That wasn't a thing 10 years ago, right? That wasn't anything people thought about. But the apps on your phone today are probably about 50% the same as they were 5 years ago. And 10 years ago, many of you didn't have apps on your phone because you didn't have smartphones. In this world, and in the world that will continue to become even more volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous, the thing that will be constant is change. And the skills that are critical to responding to change have to do with agility. And our human capital structure is not designed to be agile, it's designed to be stable. It's designed to prevent abuses that led to the death of a president in the 1800s. And we don't want to get rid of anything around merit. We actually want to amplify merit. But our calcified human capital structure, Title V, Title 38, Title 10, and all the regulations that go around that do not deliver merit. Our own employees tell us that. If you ask people around the room, what's the one quality you need to get a job in government? What's that quality? It's not skills. It's knowing somebody who already works in government. Does that sound like merit? It does not. And so in this world, in the President's Management Agenda, we identified some things that we know are challenges around hiring. We do not have an agile hiring process, and we've done some things, I think modest things, early stage things. I released guidance 3-4 weeks ago about just interpreting the law as it is actually written and the regs as they are actually written does not mean somebody who worked at a gas station is minimally qualified to work at the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. Like, minimally qualified is not in the code. Minimally qualified is not a thing. There's qualified and there's unqualified. And you can actually, in the code as it's written today, use experts to determine whether someone's qualified so that HR professionals don't have to present business managers lists of hundreds of people who are unqualified. We did some pilots around that, and we proved we could hire as many or more veterans who were actually qualified. We proved we could hire quickly, and we proved that we could hire the right people who were ready to start. And we did it in a fair, open, and by the way, competitive way. Because the reality of our system that was designed to be competitive and fair and merit-based is if you fill up a queue for hiring with 100 people who are unqualified, do they fill that job off of the list of 100 people? No, they don't. They fill it through some exception that isn't in the competitive service. That isn't actually merit. So we've done some things, and there will be more things to come on the hiring front. Performance management is another really critical thing we've looked at. We've put a number of things out there. But one of the main conclusions that I drew from the work on changing performance management in government today was that we need to look at what performance is in government today. It's not about the technology we use to measure performance. We have to actually look and be honest with our employees about what was a 3, what was a 4, and what was a 5 on a 5-point scale 10, 15 years ago isn't what's needed in the 21st century. The skills, capabilities, competencies that deliver against mission, service, and stewardship are changing, they're growing. What we need from our leaders, especially our SES, I might add, is agility, is true leadership, is the ability to not just tell people how to do things, but help them gain the ability to constantly learn how to do it themselves, learn how to adapt. And there are models in government. I think we're going to hear from one from the OD&I community in the national intelligence realm. I've got a White House fellow who's here with us today, who's a commander in the Navy, who's helping us think about some of the leadership models from the military. But when we look at the way people need to evolve in the 21st century to deal with 8 months a year of forest fires instead of 3 or 4. Are people who fight fires for 8 months a year seasonal workers? Well, Title V says they are, and it's really hard to hire those guys, even though those guys and gals are the same guys and gals, but they're not full-time feds, they're seasonal workers. Well, now the season is almost the whole year. Are we thinking about that the right way? So you probably thought you'd hear a lot about cyber reskilling, and I will talk about that. But that, again, gets back to this bigger question around agility. So we had a great success. So the CIO Council, Chief Information Officer Council, essentially opened up a pilot, a test and learn opportunity to reskill 50 individuals from the existing federal government to fill the thousands of open jobs that we have in government around the cyber mission. And we got 2,300 applications. 2,300 feds believe they want to be part of this cyber mission. And the first cohort of 25 selected people who explicitly were not in the IT community. So part of what we wanted to prove was that we could look at aptitude and drive skills acquisition for people who had desire and aptitude, not necessarily previous experience. And I mean, we were overwhelmed with the results of the actual reskilling activity. So we brought in people, they scored better than anybody, 50,000 other people in the world have gone through this program. Our feds that we selected did better than any other population that's taken this set of courses, and they did it in less time because we compressed the time frame. And it was a great experience for them. And we're having a hard time placing them. Not because they're not qualified, not because they don't have the skills, and not because we don't have thousands of open jobs that need people with those skills. Why can't we move them? It's not like stubbornness. It's the framework. It's the business model that says, well, you're a GS9, and the way I've coded this job in this agency is not a GS9. And we have to look at all of the complexity of how the law and the regs treat that. So somebody's taken time away from their family and their job to get more skills. They have more skills. They have all the skills they used to have, plus some more, highly valuable skills. You would think we should be able to get them in a better job with more pay, not a ton more, because our feds, we don't need to pay, we're not here for the money, right? This is not why we do this. The way we think about it, if somebody was a GS5 and now has these skills, they can't become a GS9. The only way they could do that is what? Leave. Because that's really helpful. So they go work for some of you all, and then they come back. They want to work on this mission. They've already been background investigated. They already have all the clearances. They have the skills. And then they're going to go work for the private sector for a couple of years, and then come back and navigate our complex hiring system, and then wait for that clearance for, like 5 years will pass. And the skills that they got that we paid for might not be relevant anymore. I mean, like, what's wrong with this picture? This is like facepalm stuff, right? And so I'm on a tear around this broader question. It's not just training, it's not just reskilling, it's the broader framework. And I'm not naive. I know this is a longer conversation. I might even say a crusade, which, all the positive and negative connotations of that word. But it is the most important thing I see for the future of government in the 21st century. I really believe that, because the world is not going to get less complex. The world is not going to get less dynamic. The war for talent is the thing that CEOs in the private sector think the most about. It is one of the most strategic things on their agendas, and so it's not going to get easier for us to get the best and brightest into government. It's going to get harder. We already know this isn't the most attractive place. And it isn't the money people. It's, I come to government and I've got great ideas and I want to make an impact, and I can't. I'm stuck. I can't make the impact I came here to do. That's a problem. And then the maybe biggest problem of all, automation is having a profound impact on what work will be. And the things that only humans can do are the things we need our workforce to be eminently skilled at. And those are not the things that the code that we have, that the statutes and the regs and rule books give us, because agility comes from judgment, it comes from leadership, it comes from learning and failing. It comes from all of it working together as a business system. So this is like, I'm testing out this as my stump speech because I've had a little time to think about it. I want to think deeply about it. I want folks in the broader community to help me think about it. One of the reasons I love to come to events like this is I can pose challenges, problems, and feed little bits of information to a broader network of great minds who probably have deeper thoughts and a broad knowledge. And I can use you as part of the workforce that helps us get clarity. And some of you might even find opportunities to change or add to your training curricula, or offer new technology solutions that help us learn faster. I'd love to see more of the combination around technology, human cognition, and practical applications to come together. That's why we created the notion of a gear center and put people as one of the critical hearts of that. How do you train 40-year-olds to do something very different? Stick them in a classroom? Is that effective? Is that the thing that science tells us is the best way to train people? Well, how about technology? Who plays Candy Crush? Okay, admit it. It's mostly women. The men won't admit it. People who think they can't do technology probably have learned something fairly sophisticated technologically by playing a game. They're training people I just heard yesterday on the radio, they're training people at 7-Eleven or I can't remember where, someplace, to deal with robberies using virtual reality. They're essentially inducing stress. How does the military train people? On-the-job training. One of the biggest barriers I think we have in government is that our workforce has been put in a place through the code, not through their own volition or their management volition, but just the structure, the business system that says, get deeply competent at this one thing and just keep going down that. Unfortunately, deep technical knowledge, which is what we have historically rewarded, is the most easily automated thing that there is in the world of work. The things that are hardest to learn, we learn by doing, and we learn by falling and failing. It's what we do in kindergarten. I steal your toy, you cry, the teacher comes over and says, that's not how we do it. How might we do that? Play acting. Mammals learn a lot by play. I don't know what the answers are here, but the questions are profound. And we've done a lot of things to try to shake loose what are the right questions, what are the right areas, what are the right battles to engage in. And a lot of the press that I've been involved in, I think has taken out of context something we tried to do to really change our go-forward operating model around the human capital mission, which has been called the OPM-GSA merger or other less sanguine things. But what that fundamentally was looking around at leading practice in the private sector and most importantly in the states as diverse as California, New York, Florida, Missouri. How do they run their human capital worlds? And they do them in an integrated operating framework, a business model. In California, as recently as 5 years ago, Jerry Brown, Democratic governor, put in place something called the Government Operations Agency. Guess what things it includes? Human capital, buildings, procurement, IT. Working in an integrated fashion, in an elevated way, cabinet secretary, helping the chief executive of one of the largest states, actually in the world, right? I forget what number size economy. But they recognize, number one, they have to balance a budget, so they have to do it efficiently. But number two, solving the problems in California requires that kind of frame. And they're trying to do it in an agile way. I know you all care deeply about this subject. And so a lot of what we have to do is singles and doubles. And the cyber reskilling experience, I think, is a solid double. But a placement program that allows us to run over all those roadblocks and get all of those people placed and then train the 300 people who we didn't have capacity for, but have the aptitude and the desire, those are singles and doubles. But the broader conversation that we need to ask, not only as a federal government, but as a society, when I look at the challenges that brought me to government, they really were challenges about a sea change in society that is driven by people feeling alienated or left out of the workforce or opportunity because of the nature of their historical work. That's a profound, important thing. It's why I came. And I think, I'm not naive in saying this country has always, when we get clarity about the problem we're solving, we do come together to solve that problem. And the private sector's part of it, government's part of it, citizens are part of it. So I am out of time, but I absolutely applaud all the efforts you all are making around this particular topic. And I ask you to think broadly about what we need to do in the 21st century. So thank you so very much.